Hey, Lucas here for Mahoney Glass. It's been a while since I made a video. I've been pretty busy and trying to get everything sorted over here. Anyway, so today I'm going to work on 3 different types of bales. And if you don't know what a bale is, it's just a different name for the loop that goes onto a pendant. Anyway, let's get started on those and we'll talk a little bit more about them as we're making. Let's go. And here are the 3 different bales that we're going to do. And yeah, just wanted to get a nice look at them. I'm going to be using some 6mm rod, a bunch of punties, whatever size you want to use. I'm using 4mm, some 4mm rod that I'll be using to make other loops for the bales, some tweezers, a reamer, tungsten pick, and some really cheap pinchers that I made, and of course my Zippo. Alright, so for the first loop, we're going to use some pre-made stuff. I made a couple of clear cabs. I'd recommend you also doing the same thing for practicing. I got some 6mm rod which I'm using. So what you're going to do is heat up a fairly decent sized section of the 6mm rod. I'm doing about a centimeter of it, maybe a little bit less, and preheating the cab where I'm going to stick the clear glass onto. Tag it, pull back slightly, and then you can pull to your desired length. I recommend a good 2 centimeters. It'll make it easier. And flame cut. Now, what you're going to do is pull off a little bit of the extra because I ended up boiling it slightly. It happens, and it's nicer to have a more tapered end to deal with. It gets a cleaner connection. Here, I'm just heating it at an angle that is parallel to my bench so that when it starts to droop, I can grab it with my tweezers and bend it around. And now the final part of that is heat it on both the tip that you pulled off and the part of the loop, which will allow you to bend it around. And then reheat both one more time and squish and pull back slightly. And now take your flame and a reamer at the same time, and you can just melt it all into how you feel comfortable with. I like to fully melt it in. I just prefer the look. Some people like it to be slightly melted in, and it also has a nice look as well, but that goes all up to your own opinion. And here I'm just adjusting the loop to get it nice and circular in there for this specific one, and we're going to call that good. Quick note, I recommend trying to use as cool of a seal as possible so that when you tap it off, there's very little fire polishing needed. All right. Next one is going to be where we form a loop separately beforehand. There's actually a couple of ways to do this as well. But same idea as with the other one. As you're heating it parallel to your bench, you're going to just let it droop and use your tweezers to help it turn around. heat both parts of the glass, the tip and the part that you're going to attach it to, which will allow you to turn it in, and melt in how much you want to melt in and adjust the loop until it's nice and even. I'm going to give it a little bit of help with the reamer to get it nice and round. This is actually a pretty nice way of doing it, and I'd recommend actually doing this specific one to start out with for the adding a new loop. I know I've done another video that had making a fairly simple one as well, but this one can be made after you've gotten that one figured out a lot better, because you can add different shapes to it. You can make it a little flame shape or have a little point on it. Anyway, I'll stop rambling now. So flame cut, and I personally like doing it with the punty, specifically because you tend to end up having a little bit thicker area where you've connected them, and it's easier to hide that extra glass when you attach it onto your pendant or earrings or whatever you happen to be doing with this specific type of loop. Okay, so now once again, preheat your cab in the back flame. And the easiest thing to do is, if you have a nice flat one like I'm using here, is to make it perpendicular. Get everything warmed up, take your time. You can always adjust it after you've tagged it. And attach. Give it a little bit of pull back. Make sure it's parallel. Right there, you can throw in some heat if you want to get it even. Or if you're silly like me and manage to break off the wrong punty, reheat it and go back and fix that. And since I screwed up that, I'm just going to flame cut it and clean it off. And here you can melt in a little bit more if you want. If you did a really good hot seal from the beginning, not such a big deal, but I like to go through and make sure everything's nice and fully melted in. It's a personal taste thing, and does make it a little bit stronger. And one of the nice things is when you're doing the reaming, you can actually adjust the angle of the loop fairly easily if it's off by just a little bit. And now I've kind of felt like giving it a bit more of a teardrop kind of shape, so just gonna pull it a little bit to give it a little bit more of a fun shape. Alright, for this one we're going to get some 6mm rod. We're going to use the cab, we're going to melt the rod put a big old blob on and fully melt it in. And this is the time where you're going to use the tweezers, which are really easy to make. I think I might need to throw together a couple of how-tos on making tools later on. But anyway, so attach your blob on, just get it centered is more important than anything else. And the melting in right here will make life pretty easy because you can just let it flop to one side to fix any irregularities for where you attached it. So anyway, I have these tweezers. I just got some $100 yen tweezers. I bent the pins on it, and yeah, so I just line them up along the back side and just squeeze it in a little bit. It'll give me 2 little guide spots for when I use my tungsten pick. And this is a useful tool, and you'll notice I get it really hot, which is a bit hotter than most people tend to, but I find that it makes it go through a lot quicker. And I typically work it in the more oxygen rich part of the flame. That way it kicks off less of the fume from the metal. So the nice thing about tungsten is it transfers the heat from the flame directly into the glass, so it's about the same heat as you're dealing with, and it just pushes right through like a leatherall would, but a bit slower. You don't want to push so hard you knock it off the punty. You will knock it off the punty a couple of times. It just kind of happens. Anyway, one of the nice parts about this is that you can use a very oxygen-rich flame afterwards to burn off any of the scum from the tungsten pick. And if you're using, say, a GTT to burn off the scum that's on there, it's pretty easy because it has that extra oxygen knob on most of their models. If you're using something, say, like a Carlisle like I am, well, lucky you, because you got that second oxygen knob as well. You just can kick on your outer oxygen without turning on your propane, and that helps a lot. And if you have a little bit of scum that's left over on the interior part, if you're using a clear color, just run it through the kiln and then grab a rotary tool and just a quick little zip with that on the inside will get rid of it, and you can fire polish it. And that'll get it right out. It's pretty easy to do. And so after you get the bale ready and reamed out to the size you want it to be, then you're going to want to go back and make sure to spray off all the rest of that extra tungsten fume that you had. It won't be terribly noticeable, but it'll still make it not as shiny. And that's what happens when you forget that you gotta knock it off the punty. Well, thanks for watching. Make sure to check out our Instagram, as well as I'm streaming on Twitch at least once a week. And we also have a Discord set up for anything you want to talk about, as well as any videos you'd like to see. Let me know there. And make sure to drop on by our website to check out what's available. Thanks for watching.